My name is Gordon Corsetti, manager of the Men's Officials Development Program at US Lacrosse, and welcome to the 2018 Boys Lacrosse Rules Changes and Points of Emphasis webinar. The speakers you'll be hearing from tonight are James Weaver, NFHS Director of Performing Arts and Sports, Tom Neubauer, NFHS Rules Committee Chair, Dave Seidman, NFHS Rules Committee, and Walt Munsey, US Lacrosse Rules Interpreter. When you hear the voice of one of these speakers, you will also see their name highlighted at the bottom of your screen like this. Unfortunately, technical issues on the live webinar prevented us from recording the first few minutes of the discussion. I will take you through the rule changes and questions that were not recorded, and then transition into the rest of the recorded webinar with James, Tom, Dave, and Walt. Adopt the 120-yard unified girls and boys field as an allowed field option. The unified field was added as a legal field option to provide schools and leagues economic relief from having to invest in painting different lines for boys and girls games. The unified field is 120 yards long. The extra distance is found with the extra 5 yards in front of the goal and below the restraining line, which was changed from 20 yards to 25 yards. The cross specifications were announced 2 years ago and come into effect for the 2018 season. The minimum distance at the widest point of a field player's cross is 6 to 10 inches. As you measure down the cross, there are different minimum widths that must be maintained. Officials can more easily measure the minimum widths for the 2018 season using these types of scorecards. There are different online retailers that sell these shaped cards. This new rule now reads, pockets of a non-traditional synthetic material manufactured for lacrosse are permitted. The pocket must still meet the specifications of Rule 17. This is an example of a lacrosse pocket that is made with non-traditional materials. Jerseys shall be of contrasting colors for opposing teams. The home team shall wear light jerseys, and the visiting team shall wear its dark color jerseys. The visiting team is responsible for avoidance of similarity of colors, but if there is doubt, the referee may require the home team to change jerseys. The rule change to be aware of is that beginning in 2022, the home team will be required to wear white jerseys, and the away team will be required to wear non-white jerseys. And this just clarifies that we want the home team and the visiting team to have clearly different and distinct jersey colors. Here is one question that was submitted. Is there a penalty if the home team is not in white? The white jersey rule for the home team does not apply until the 2022 season. The official shall make certain that the reverse surfaces of the crosses match evenly in that the top of one head lines up with the throat of the other and are perpendicular to the ground. This is known as top to stop, and you can see in this diagram that each cross is lined up so that the very top of one cross is lined up to the stop of the opposite cross. Since the minimum length of the crosses is 10 inches long, the ball is placed 5 inches down from the top of each cross so that each player is equally distant from the ball. One listener asked if face-off violations will be tracked under NFHS rules for the 2018 season. They will not. Face-off violations are not tracked or counted under NFHS rules. This rule was changed to read, a contrasting color between the head and the top glove must be visible on the shaft at face-offs, and the circumference of the shaft shall not exceed 3.5 inches. Note, this can be accomplished with the original shaft color, paint, a single wrap of tape, or other material. The leftmost example has tape on the head of the shaft. This type of issue should be corrected before the game, when the officials meet with the face-off players after the coin toss with the captains. The next cross is also illegal because it is a black shaft with a black head. The other two examples are good examples for a face-off cross. The head and shaft are two clearly different colors in each example. This new rule states that a goal will be allowed if the shot is released prior to the end of the period. This means that shots in lacrosse are now handled the same way as shots in basketball. If the ball has been released from the shooter's cross and the horn sounds or the clock hits 0, then the officials must delay their whistle until the shot comes to its natural conclusion. One listener asked, "What about deflections when determining if a goal is good after the horn sounds to end a period?" A deflection off a defensive player or the goalkeeper's body or cross is a good goal, but a deflection off an offensive player's body or cross is not. One listener asked, "A shot is released and the horn blows. Can the shot bounce off the ground and into the goal, or is it dead when it hits the ground?" This would be a legal goal. It is the same rule as a bounce shot during a flag down slow whistle, and the goal counts. No defensive player, other than a properly equipped goalkeeper, can enter his own crease with the perceived intent on blocking a shot or acting as a goalkeeper. The penalty for this rule was clarified. As in prior years, this was enforced as an individual penalty. It now reads, a conduct foul on the defensive player will be called. A second violation by the team will be enforced as releasable unsportsmanlike conduct, served by the offending player. And now we'll transition into the recorded webinar as David Seidman speaks more about this rule change.
That's pretty much an indication that he's in there to act as goalkeeper because the goalkeeper's way away from the area. So that would result in a killing a play. Don't wait till the shot's taken. This is for the protection of the player who is not properly protected. He doesn't have the throat guard. He doesn't have the chest protector, and he's in danger here. So unless that shot has actually been taken, we're going to stop play. The only reason we don't stop play if the shot's in progress is because although you'd think the safety would dictate that, what you end up doing is encouraging players to step in front of a shot knowing that you're going to kill play. So we don't want that. So once the shot's released, a player that steps in results in a flag down. If the player steps in while the shot's in the air on a very long shot, and this isn't new from last year, it's just the way we assess it is new. A long shot and the player didn't step in the crease until the ball is in the air. That's actually a loose ball violation. It would be a play on. If the ball goes in the goal, it's wiped out. If he makes the save, catches the ball, or the ball misses the goal, you're going to kill it and award it back to the offense. But defensive players are allowed to play a man from inside the crease. If they're in your opinion, they're in there to play their man. They're playing a man behind the goal or cutting through the crease to follow a man who's cutting around the crease. That is all legal play. And again, the easier thing this year is you don't have to write down the number of the player, and remember that you had 42, 15, 7, and 6, all for technical fouls, all for White for technical fouls. This year, first foul on White's a technical, second foul is an unsportsmanlike.
And to go a little bit further with that, a couple of officials asked, what if more than one player is attempting to block the shot? So you say you have two defensemen in, let's say you have 3 defensemen in there. What do you do after you stop play? What's being assessed?
So for the first player would get, and you can, if you don't know who was in first, make it up. One player is going to get a conduct foul for 30 seconds if it's if this was a possession type foul. The other any additional player, whether it's 1 or 2, is going to receive that 1 minute releasable unsportsmanlike. See which player was in first. He's the one that gets the conduct foul. Once you have that foul occur during a game on that team, and as many players want to step in, every one of them is going to get that minute.
Fair enough. So here's one. I'll try to explain this as best I can based off of how I'm reading this. So there is a shot rolling on the ground very slowly toward an empty net. The defender enters the crease to scoop up the ball. Would this still be a penalty? Or would this be is this really a defender going to pick up the ball? Is safety an issue here, I think would be my big question.
Tommy, Walt, you guys, I'd be okay with calling that just picking up a loose ball.
Yeah, I would not consider that a shot. More, I mean, even though it's headed towards the goal, it doesn't really violate the safety premise that we're looking at. It's the spirit of the rule not being violated.
Okay, so next up here, again, just a clarification, failure to wear a required mouthpiece properly unless it comes out during play still fits under the technical foul rule, which would it be a 30-second penalty or a turnover in the event of a loose ball or the team in possession. Tom, would you mind speaking to why this was clarified and what we specifically mean to as far as properly goes?
Yeah, there was some ambiguity about wearing a mouthpiece with the fish hook or biting, protruding out of the mouth, not being on the teeth. So by inserting properly, we've made sure that officials know it must be in, it must be being worn properly, and then it also contrasts with not even having a mouthpiece, which is a different violation.
And this is, and Walt, can you speak to, this is a point of emphasis this year, was, if memory serves, was it a point, I can't remember if it was a point of emphasis last year, but this year it certainly is. And what are we looking for officials to do if they see a player that is pictured in this image here? If he's fish hooking the ball, either playing defense or playing offense, what would you most want the officials to do?
Well, again, safety is the most important thing here. And we've got it down to a conduct foul because we want the officials to make those calls. When it was a personal foul, tendency is to lay off that. So if it's, if it's an offensive player and he's got a fish hook, that's an easy one. You can take it away. If it's a defensive man and you got a shot situation going in there, that makes it a little bit more difficult. But again, it is a technical foul either way. So the offensive player, it'd be a loss of ball. On the D-man, it's going to be a flag if the other team has possession. So that's what we want to do. Again, of course, if it comes out during contact, during the play, that's a non-violation. That's different. The important thing is to stress and make those calls. And, it's a good point, too, not only making them, but remind the coaches again that it's an important rule for safety, for sure.
And again, to one of the questions that came in here, let's say you're working the game and you realize you think the player doesn't have it in. Okay, we've seen it, and it turns out he doesn't have a mouth guard at all, or isn't wearing a mouthpiece at all. Or is it still the same call? Still a technical foul?
Tom, I believe we said it was a technical foul, right?
Yeah, but it just fell under the different rule. But yes.
Dave, correct?
Yep, I agree with you both. Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Into stall warning. So this is going to be a change in how in what wipes off or ends a stalling situation. So a stall warning remains in effect until a goal is scored, a shot hits the goal pipes, the goalkeeper, or his equipment. Additionally, the same as it's been before, a defensive team gains possession, or the period ends and it results in a face-off. Walt, can you speak to this rule change and how officials need to be aware of it in these situations?
Well, we try to allow a little bit more freedom there, and if the ball does hit the goalkeeper or the pipes, the stall warning is off, and so we give that fair catch signal again, giving the team an opportunity to continue play in and out of the attack box area. So that was just an extension that we were trying to gain here, not going to a full freedom, but yet allow them to continue to play if they've made it. They've served the purpose of the stall. They've taken a shot, so they've complied with what they've been warned to stop doing, and that's stalling. So they take a shot, they can be rewarded by continuing possession.
Mm-hmm. And again, the mechanic on this is the exact same for those of you guys who've officiated under collegiate rules, is if one of these situations occurs that wipes a stall off or ends it, it's giving the fair catch signal and saying it's off, it's off, it's off. You can say that, or stall is off, whatever. As long as you're saying it's off, and you're waving your arm nice and big, that's communicating it to everybody on the field. And partners, Dave, I think you'd agree that we want everybody on the field to echo that call so all teams are aware of that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I would suggest you waive your template also.
We're going to get a lot of use out of that thing.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Get carried away. Sorry.
Here's a question that came in. A team is leading by 2 goals, let's say, at under 2 minutes. We've told them to get it in. They brought it in. That we now have told them to keep it in. Does this get wiped off in the event they hit the goalkeeper, the pipes, or the goalkeeper's equipment, or does that stall stay on for the last 2 minutes of the game?
I'll take that if you don't mind, Walt. Tommy, that's a separate rule. That rule is different, and if you're required to keep it in either by rule or by warning, you're required to keep it in. Check that. If you're required to keep it in by rule, so the last 2 minutes of a game where the score differential is 4 goals or less, the winning team's required to keep it in. Hitting the goalie is not going to let you bring it out. That's a good point to bring up, Gordon.
So just that we have stall warnings, and then we have the under 2 stall warning, 2 totally separate things in terms of how we're wiping this or keeping it on. And that under 2 doesn't change unless we have a tie score or if this goal differential is 5 goals or more.
James and Tommy, that's probably a good one to add to think about for a situation for future.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'll make a note.
Moving on here. So this is again, a clarification. If the ball was in the goal area when play was suspended, it shall be restarted nearest to the spot of the ball at the time of the whistle, 20 yards laterally outside the goal area. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was just, I think we had some missing language in there that made it look like the offense could restart.
We just tried to clean it up, but that's the same rule as we've always been doing. That's what you're supposed to do. So there's really no change here. We just tried to get it a little clear as far as the way we wrote it.
Just a quick note here. There's a lot of time has been spent, James and Tommy, with Walt's help especially, spent a lot of time cleaning up a lot of little things like this. I think you'll find the book to be cleaner this year than it's been in a long time.
Okay, so the next one up here, this is just an emphasis on, we don't have the whole quote of the rule because it was actually things getting deleted, but we're still applying goody for when we have a flag down slow whistle. The only thing that we've removed now is if the ball comes out of the box. So if the offensive team, we have a flag down and the offensive team carries or passes the ball out of the box and maintains possession, we keep the flag down going. And the mechanic that we encourage officials, if they're having trouble doing that, is if you have a flag down, palm the whistle, put your thumb over it, just in case you're antsy to blow it as soon as he steps on or over the line of the box line. Dave, you just want to speak a little bit more to Goody, or is that fairly clear enough?
Sure, I think it's clear. The one thing to keep in mind here is that this is the removal of a restriction. So a team that's otherwise required to keep it in, either by rule or by official's warning, is still required to keep it in. If you have a 2-goal game and the team that's leading is on offense and passing the ball around the box, and there's a flag down, and now they take it out of the box, that falls under the actually one of the O's here, Gordon, should be offensive foul or offensive violation. So crease violation would stop play, and bringing the ball out of the box.
That's an error on that one.
Yep. Those are offensive violations, and that would still stop play. So there's no restriction by flag to keep it in, but that doesn't offer relief from the rule that otherwise says either in a 4-goal or less game in the last 2 minutes, or the referees have put the warning on, that warning would still hold. And that would include failure to advance, for instance, any offensive violation, ward, crease violation, and what we would call stalling, which would be you had a warning on and they stepped it out of the box. If there's no warning on otherwise, and you're not within the last 2 minutes of a close game, then they can play anywhere in the offensive half of the field.
Good stuff. So again, this is going to be one that you're going to want to explain to coaches. You're talking about this, face-offs, shots at the end of period. Again, always those points of emphasis talking with the coaches, but this is going to be one that out of all the rule changes is probably going to occur the most frequently since we have flags. So this is going to happen. So there's something for everybody to be aware of and something to communicate to the coaches and the players when you have the opportunity. Okay, so this is applying now to the last 2 minutes of the game. The official shall withhold the whistle until a second defensive foul is committed during the final 2 minutes of regulation play with the team that is ahead possessing the ball, unless a scoring play is imminent. Dave, you mind taking this one since you and I went back and forth on this a few times?
Sure. The only thing the rule is concerned with here is the time of the second foul. The score differential is irrelevant. If the team is ahead by 1 goal or 10 goals, and the first foul is with 2 minutes and 10 seconds, if there's a second foul under 2 minutes anywhere on the field, we're going to that's the team that is ahead and in possession is fouled. That's going to instantly kill the play.
The important thing here, Dave, again, last year, our focus was that it had to be in the attack box. And this opens it up now.
Right. And again, this is for safety. We're just looking to prevent a team that's down from taking advantage and just kind of beating up on a team that's winning.
So again, just to clarify, if set the second flag under 2 minutes when it's the leading team has the ball, if they get flagged, penalized, the defensive team, is flagged for that second time, regardless of where it is. If they're in the box or out of the box, we're going to stop play and assess those fouls. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. And I think everybody's got that. So, so to clarify that, so if the 2 minute stall is not on, say we have a score differential, but we still have a leading team, this rule is still assessed. So if it's a blowout game and we've got the defensive team is losing and they slash somebody twice and we don't have somebody going to the goal, we stop play, assess the penalties, and restart appropriately. Okay, so this is one, a couple things really just getting deleted here. So a shot's going to remain a shot in these situations. So the examples here, if an offensive player catches the ball, that's a missed shot, so one that goes past the goal and is caught by a player behind it, or one that deflects off an offensive player and goes to the goal. Dave, you mind talking to this one a little bit more?
Yeah, the committee felt that there were times when a play was easy. We're not looking to go to the NCAA rule here with the extended flag down. We're just looking to give a team a chance who's kept the ball moving, kept the ball in the air, give them a chance to get the ball on the goal under a flag down situation. So if the ball doesn't hit the ground, hasn't hit the goalie or pipe on a shot, what appears to be a shot is caught by another offensive player in front of the goal, behind the goal. As long as the ball has not hit the ground, we're going to allow play to continue. So there's still no bounce pass allowed. If a shot hits the ground and then goes past the goal and then it's caught by another offense player after it's hit the ground, we're going to kill it. But any ball that's caught in the air by an offensive teammate is going to allow play to continue, whether that appeared to be a shot or a pass. No change on the shot. Being a ball that's dropped is going to kill the slow whistle situation. A shot is allowed to hit the ground. We're going to let that shot continue to its normal conclusion, just as we would at the end of the period. But if the ball doesn't hit the ground, doesn't hit the goalie or his stick or pipe, and it's caught in the air by an offensive teammate, play will continue.
And if it ricochets off the offensive player's helmet, what are we doing?
Again, if the ball stays in the air, doesn't hit the ground, we still have a live ball.
All right.
Anytime the ball comes to rest as well, right, David?
When a shot comes to rest, right? So that's what's going to end a shot. So
right.
a shot that hits the goalie in the foot and is trickling towards the goal, as long as there's no added impetus by an offensive player, if that ball trickles into the goal, that's still a goal. If the ball comes to rest on the field, say right in front of the crease, right in front of the goal line behind the goalie, the ball comes to a stop, and then an offensive player reaches in to play it, that's going to be a whistle.
Right.
As soon as the ball comes to a stop there. So that would be the shot considered coming to its normal conclusion.
All right. So here's just a note for signals change. In the past, if we've been signaling to the table that a technical foul is wiped off, we've given the safe signal that is now changed to the in addition to the inadvertent flag signal, this will also be the signal for signaling that a technical foul is wiped off. So it's going to look like this, that the goal is good. Say there was a push or there was a hold or there was a conduct foul. The push is wiped off, face off. So that's what we're going to be looking for. That's really just in terms of mechanics. You can see this on the mechanics video that we put together on that one.
The rationale for that, real quickly, is that we had a fair number of of newer table personnel, again, as we grow the sport and we grow into areas that aren't that are learning the game. We had a fair number of table personnel very confused by a common signal between wiping out a penalty and wiping out a goal. So one of the we don't use the inadvertent flag very often. It just doesn't happen very often. You got the flag out anyway. The NCAA went to this a couple of years ago, and we thought it would be clearer and cause less confusion, especially in the growth areas of the sport.
All right, so we're coming down. That's the end of things. So fortunately, we do have some time here that we'll be able to cover a few other questions that came around. I did want to point out a few things. This is the NFHS website. You can see down at the bottom. If you want to check on the things that they post for boys lacrosse, press releases, as well as any other things that they put up on the rules, those go up here. Before I move on this, James, we had one question come in from actually two different officials asking if somebody has a rules question or they want a rules interpretation, an official interpretation for the NFHS, what's the procedure that they should follow?
Yeah, so the first thing you want to do is ask your state association staff, especially if it's a state association specific rule. And then if it's not a state specific rule, go ahead and send that to me at the NFHS, and then I will converse with Tommy and David and Walt to get you the right answer, and then get that back to you as soon as possible. And I'm usually pretty quick on that as long as I'm not traveling somewhere.
All right, good stuff. Appreciate that. Next up here, just a couple things for resources with U.S. Lacrosse. If you have anything that's related to rules in any way, shape, or form for both men's and youth boys is going to be on the Boys Rules page of uslacrosse.org. And as well, this webinar, as well as all the other recordings and the online courses and some other cool things that we're putting together, you can check out at learning.uslacrosse.org. So we've got a whole bunch of things on there. If you're a US Lacrosse member, you can order all these things for free. There's a dollar value if you're not a USL member associated with that. If you have any questions about a course or a webinar, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll be happy to get you that information. So now we'll move in. Let me go back. I'm going to open up our questions things here, and we'll just kind of roll through. I'll try to do this because most of these are in order. So let's see here. Okay, here's a good, Tom, probably best to ask you this one. Is there any obligation for the home team to let a visiting team know that they are using a unified field?
No, I mean, I would think they might put it out. Knowing the way my state is, again, I'm a small state, word gets around, but the differentials aren't drastic. So I don't think anybody would be put at an advantage or disadvantage by it. But it could be a courtesy, and since we do stress sportsmanship, it would be a nice thing to do, but I wouldn't think it would be obligated.
I agree. It's just one of those things that as the officials on there, just like if we found something odd on a field that wasn't safety related, but we want the visiting team to know, like we tell them that. It's like, hey, this is what we're going to do.
I would relate it to soccer and basketball, where the federation gives a range of dimensions, and people just know, oh, this is a big basketball court, this is a narrow soccer field. Word would get out that way.
Okay.
Tommy, I think we may see this a lot. I think there's a lot of push for this among the associations, and it's not a huge difference to us as officials or to the players, but this represents a potentially huge savings to schools. Creates fields with a lot less confusing number of lines on them, and I would be surprised if this didn't take off eventually. I think it may take a while for people to settle in with it, but I kind of expect this to be a hit.
Yeah, the only downside would be turf fields that already have lines permanently sewn in, and I don't know if that's the mode. I know most of the fields around my area only have two sports sewn in, and then they paint all the others. So if they are sewn in, that would not allow this. But again, this is an option just to save money. It's not a mandate. We still have the two other fields, so I think everybody will coexist very peacefully.
Okay, next up, speaking of face-offs and shaft color, do we have any requirement on how far down the shaft the contrasting color has to go?
No, the entire shaft could be a different color.
The point is just to create the contrast between cross and glove and shaft.
Okay, here's one for the defenders and the crease. What about defenders lining up outside the crease with the intent to block a shot?
Legal play.
No problem.
Yeah. it's kind of floating the spirit of the rule, but it's legal.
Yep. And to confirm, if a player gets multiple or a team has multiple second violations, this is a releasable unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, which does not count towards ejections under NFHS rules, correct?
That's correct.
All right, good stuff. Had a couple of guys wanting to just double check on that one. If the ball hits a pipe and we are under a stall warning, just a stall warning, not under the last 2 minutes. If it hits a pipe, the stall is off. So pipe, goalie, net, goalkeepers, any part of that goal or the goalkeeper that gets hit would wipe off the stall if it's just a regular get it in, keep it in.
Correct.
It's limited to goal pipe, the goalie or his equipment. If a pass behind the you're not going to allow him to put it off the back of the net. That's not going to count.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying that one. That'll help me out too. So pipes, goalie, goal stick. All right. Let's see here. Okay, here's one came up on failure to wear a mouthpiece properly is different by rule than missing required equipment. Can we confirm that they are both technical fouls? A couple guys noted that it's still listed as a 1 minute non-releasable penalty in the required equipment section, but
I
not under.
That's one of the things that James and Tommy were able to clear up for this.
Cleaned up. Yep. Okay. So no matter what, technical fouls or mouthpiece, whether you don't have it or you wear it improperly and are called on it, it's a technical foul.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Can we just, Dave, again, just speak to the mechanic of, again, goodie for itself. If we have a shot and it deflects off of somebody and then it hits the ground and it stops, we have to stop play. Correct?
Right. That's a shot. That's a shot that's taken that does not result in a goal, unless it's caught in the air. Is what the rule book is going to say this year. So once the ball comes to rest on the field, a shot's been taken. It doesn't result in a goal, and then that's a dead ball.
Okay, James, Tom, this would be more for you. Have the 28 or when will the 2018 rule books be published or available for download?
Yeah, I can take that one. They're actually at the print right now. They should be done here, I want to say, the next 2 or 3 days. So we should be able to have them out for shipment to the state associations here by the end of the week, and then for purchase by probably early next week. And when they're available for purchase, they should be available for download.
All right, like that. Appreciate that one. Here's one for unified field. This might just be more of an awareness thing. On a football field, goal posts could very well be on the end line. Should we be requiring padding on the goal posts?
Yes.
All right, clear enough. So again, something to be aware of. That might be something that that's something you'd have to make aware with either the site administrator or the head coach of the home team to make sure that we have padding on those. The same thing we do with like a soccer goal that's been right on the end line.
The committee talked about that a lot. If you don't mind me filling in, Tommy, and you don't see that. You don't really see those H goalposts right on the end line anymore. It was a concern. We think it's been. We don't think it will be an issue. But yes, if you do have those goalposts right on the end line, they should.
So we get to 2 goals. It's let's say you already had a stall on previously. Let's say the team that's leading, they're up by 5, but you put a stall on them at the 4-minute mark, and they keep possession, and we go under 2 minutes. Do we wipe the stall off, or do we continue that stall warning?
Stall continues.
Continues.
Right. You're not going to. Once you put the warning on, the only thing that takes it off are the things that are specified in the book. That's a shot that hits the goalie or the goal pipes or his equipment, defensive possession, quarter ends resulting in a face-off.
All right, let's see here. Here's one. A non-defender jumps from outside the crease, blocks a shot while he is in the air, and then lands in the crease. Would this be a violation?
Pretty good move.
They got to be in the crease. So if they block it outside the crease, again, they're flouting the spirit of the rule, but they're not technically violating it.
And we also have the rule of you are where you were. So technically, even if you're in the airspace above the crease, you're not considered in the crease until you land in the crease.
Yeah.
So if the kid makes that play, you know what? That's going to be at least a bruise that he's going to be proud of. And yes, just to confirm, that releasable unsportsmanlike for the second or more violation of stepping into the crease to block a shot or a perceived intent of acting as a goalkeeper would count to, it's a personal foul, so it counts to the 5 personal foul minutes for fouling out. When will the 2018 NFHS online rules test be administered by state athletic associations? James, you mind giving some insight onto when guys can expect to take that?
Yeah, check with your state association now. Those exams went out about 2.5 weeks ago, and so they're out there ready to go. So check with your state association and see when they're ready to start administering those.
And the U.S. Lacrosse test, again, on these rules is going to be available probably in mid-December. Our task force is working on that, so that's going to be available on learning.uslacrosse.org as well. Here's a different one. Equipment check between periods. Both teams are missing mouthpieces. Each player that you check is missing a mouthpiece. Do you want penalties to be time-serving? Or are they offsetting technical fouls where sequence can't be determined?
I would go with the offset and just make sure they're wearing the key is to get the equipment in, not to be punitive in a dead ball situation.
All right. Would the situation be different if one team has an illegal cross, but the other player does not have a mouthpiece?
You'd have to go with simultaneous, Dave.
All simultaneous fouls.
Yeah.
I think. Right. I think. Yeah, that's right, Tommy. I think
They both go.
Yeah. And first 30 seconds would be non-releasable for both players, and then the team with the lesser penalty time, which would be the mouth guard, barring any other violations that are found, would receive possession.
Would get the ball, right?
Can I go back for 1 second on that stall situation? If David, and you can see if I'm correct here. If we have a situation where a team is leading by 4 or less, so they're required to keep it in, and we have a flag down, they cannot go out of the box.
Right. They're still required by rule to keep right.
That's right. That's where everyone's going to have to be alert for the stall and the slow whistle in terms of what releases a slow whistle. But the stall, you're going to have to know the difference on that. One situation you can go out, but if you're required to keep it in either by an official's determination that you have a stall or by the score, you cannot go out of the box on a flag.
Right. We've seen this question a lot already.
Right.
We're hoping that as people get comfortable with that restriction to keep it in just by the flag down, as that goes away and the memory fades, this will be less of a question, but it will be a question for you this year. So that's a good point, Walt.
Yeah. So all right. I believe that looking at these, that we have covered these questions. If we didn't, or you didn't think the answer was particularly clear, hold tight. I'm going to be working up a document that's going to go, question, answer all the way through of all the stuff that we've had here. And we'll write up our responses. It'll be reviewed by James, Tom, Walt, and Dave, and we'll put that out to you guys hopefully within another week or so. We'll make that available to you all on this call, as well as available at uslacrosse.org and to our certified trainers and our certified officials. We are just a little bit past 9:30, so I want to thank James Weaver and Tom Neubauer, as well as Walt Munsey and David Seidman for their time tonight. Really appreciate it. I think this is already tremendously helpful, not only to our trainers and observers, but just officials in general. I learned a few things, which is going to make me better stepping on the field in a few months. So this is great stuff. Really appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you all for your time, and have a great rest of your evening.